Welcome to the DCS AJS37 Viggen Startup Training. I'm Top Gun with the AKA War Dog Squadron. I'll be working off of my startup checklist version 1.3. So let's go ahead and get started. And this first step is actually one I see a lot of people miss. Maybe not be terribly important if you're used to just holding an aircraft with your toe brakes while startup, but you should really get into the practice of using your parking brakes. So in order to set the parking brake, you need to press and hold your toe brakes and then pull this knob out right here. And if it stays out after you've let off your toe brakes, it should be set then. Now, this startup sequence is going to be done with ground electrical power provided by the ground crew. There is going to be a little bit of a difference between this and if you did a startup without it, as far as which systems you hit first. So I'll probably do a separate startup sequence for doing a startup just on internal power only, but for now we'll just do ground power only. So let's go ahead and hit the ground intercom, which is this button here, and hit the ground crew and turn on power.
Chief, turn on the ground power.
Copy. Ground power is now on.
Okay, let's go ahead and load the data cartridge, which is way back here over your left shoulder. And let's go ahead and turn on main power. And then low pressure fuel valve. And let's kill the master caution. Master mode needs to be set to BER, which it is by default with the new aircraft. But if you're landing with an aircraft and you're getting repaired and you're starting back up, you want to make sure you're back in the BER mode. Auto throttle down in the off position. It's already set correctly. And on the throttle unit, go ahead and depress the high pressure fuel valve bracket, which is this thing way over here. And that takes it out of off mode. And let's turn on the generator left to on. Now autopilot yaw correction, rotate that to 0. That's this knob. You can't hardly see it, but there's an actual protective film covering it. If you click near the hinge, it'll actually raise up, and then you can actually access the dial, but it's already set to 0 anyways, so we'll just put this back down and leave it. Let's go ahead and dial in our frequency. I'm at Seneca, so it's 132. And we'll leave it on AM, which it's set to by default. And for our FR24 radio, we'll leave this set to the default position, which is monitoring the channel you've selected plus the guard channel. Verify that your thrust reverser is pushed in and so turned off. And verify that your HUD is in the down position. You've got a little lever here that you can use to raise and lower the HUD. You want it in the down position for takeoff. HUD slave switch into the left position. And HUD altitude source set to barometric, which is this switch to the right. And left click on the backup ADI. And go ahead and set your barometric altitude on your main altitude gauge and your backup. And they're generally set to 0 by default in this, and I've not seen one yet where they haven't. But if you need to, you can adjust here. And radar warning instrumentation, leave this set in the default position, which is off to the right. And let's go ahead and set our external lighting. So we've got our anti-collision. We'll set our navigation. We'll do the left position for bright. And formation up to on. And position lights up to on. Set magnetic declination. Again, that's kind of like the yaw correction. It's got a covering over it. This knob, while it's in the sim, doesn't appear to be active yet. If you scroll on it, it doesn't seem to move. So I guess they just don't have this implemented yet. But generally, you're going to want to set this to -6 if they ever do implement that. Radar altimeter is already forward into the on position. And data cartridge, when you want to set the rotary to ref Lola. Put the input-output switch into the in position, which is to the left. And let's enter the load data cartridge code, which is 9099. And you can just verify that you've got the right numbers entered. And then hit the LS SKU button to load. And when you see all these numbers switch to zeros, it's done loading. There you go. So put the input-output switch back to out. Now let's turn on the oxygen. And let's close the canopy. Alright, let's contact ATC for engine start. So F5, your airfield, then F3.
Call key. Enfield 1-1. Request startup.
Enfield 1-1. Call key. Cleared for startup.
And then press and hold the startup, which is to the left, for about 2 seconds. You see most of the caution lights have gone out now, and the engine is stabilized. So let's continue. So pitch trim, we need to zoom in on this one, and you'll generally want 3 degrees nose up, so that's over here, and that needle moves really slowly. Alright, so that's good enough. So let's go ahead and arm the ejection seat, which is this handle over your head. And we'll go ahead and do our taxi lights, which is tucked away underneath this side panel here. You got this left switch. Now let's go ahead and contact ground crew to disconnect the ground power since we no longer need it.
Chief, turn off the ground power.
Copy. Ground power is now off.
And if it's cold, you want to go ahead and do the engine de-ice. It's not too bad right now, so we'll leave it. Go ahead and press the parking brake, or the toe brakes in to release the parking brake. And we'll contact ATC for a clearance.
Call key. Enfield 1-1. Request taxi to runway.
Enfield 1-1. Call key. Clear to taxi to runway 9.
Okay, so at this point we're ready to go, but we do have to do some housekeeping in regards to our navigation system. So I'll go ahead and actually taxi to the runway so we can complete those last couple of steps. And you barely have to touch the throttle to get this thing moving. Matter of fact, you almost have to push the throttle up until you get a response, and then actually back it completely back to idle every so often, so you don't end up getting too fast on the taxiways. And we'll hold at the hold short line.
Call key. Enfield 1-1. Request takeoff.
Enfield 1-1. Koki, you are cleared for takeoff when ready. Climb 300 at QFE 29.89.
Okay, so what we're wanting to do here is to get lined up, and then at that point we want to finish setting up our nav system here. So now that we're aligned, we'll go ahead and brake to a stop. And at this point, you want to go ahead and switch to your master mode to nav. And now you're going to want to hit your reference button, which you'll want to have key mapped, because I believe that's on the stick, in order to do a final update on your system prior to takeoff. But at this point, you're now good to go. You're cleared for takeoff. As usual, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. I hope this has been helpful. Thank you very much.